What's up, everyone? Matt Parrino here, nyupsyracuse.com, coming to you from the Ad Pro Sports Training Center, where the Buffalo Bills just finished day one, well, actually day two of OTAs, but it's the first day that was open to the media, and we're in the books here. The first practice, it was an energetic one. It was one where we got our first look at some of these new players that I think all Buffalo Bills fans were waiting to get a look at. Mitch Morse was not one of them. John Brown was not one of them. Cole Beasley, TJ Yeldon. Four guys right off the bat that are dealing with some injuries, some surgeries for Morse and Beasley, some abdominal core muscle things. John Brown, it wasn't mentioned what happened to him, so we'll wait for next week to see what's going on with him. But the big news coming out of today, Sean McDermott dropped a bomb at the start of his press conference that Tyler Kroft, tight end, the Bills signed him in free agency to a 3-year deal, broke his foot yesterday on the first day of OTAs. Kind of a blow for the Bills, trying to remake that room quite a bit. And they go out and bring in a guy like Tyler Kroft, who by most accounts is going to be the starter in this room. And he's now off the board. But, want to talk about, opportunity and, the next man up. And you look at a guy like Dawson Knox, rookie tight end from Ole Miss. The Bills took him in the third round. He's going to get a lot of first-team snaps. And I think that it's going to be good for players like him, Jason Kroom, who's going to want another look this summer, and Tommy Sweeney, 7th-round draft pick, tight end. They'll get more of a look because of that. But I wanted to take your questions. Again, if you're just hopping in, Matt Parrino, nyupsyracuse.com. We got you covered with the Bills. We were out here today watching practice, talked to a bunch of guys, talked to Josh Allen, Zay Jones. Jerry Hughes spoke about his contract extension. We can cover all of that. Take your questions, whatever you guys got. I had a few points. If you head on over to nyup or syracuse.com right now, you can check out my takeaways, what we've learned from today. Those are up on the website. But I wanted to talk about Josh Allen. I wanted to talk about, this was, a lot's been made about this is his team now, and he's going to step up into more of a leadership role. And you saw that on the field. You saw that in the way that he carried himself in here today. You saw most of that at the end of last year, but the confidence seems there. And something that really stuck out to me from him when he was talking to the media was the comfort level that he has and the confidence that he has now that he's been in the system. He's gone through a year playing in this system. He's learned from Brian Daboll. They've built a rapport, and now he is going into year two as one of the guys in the room that has been through this dance before, has learned this playbooks. He knows what his wide receivers do well and what they maybe don't do so well. He even mentioned that in the press conference that he's going to work on things that he's interested in or that he's comfortable with these receivers. And I think that you saw that. One of the big things that the knocks on Josh Allen is that short to intermediate passing game, right? That's where he struggled at times last year. Well, you look at today and, you look at practice, and I think it foreshadowed what we're going to see a lot this summer throughout minicamp and then into training camp is Josh Allen working on that short game, that those easy plays, some that he kind of left, on the field last year, because I think that's where he has the most room to grow. He mentioned it today. He thinks that's going to be something that's continuing to get better and better as he goes along. But you're seeing that there's a commitment to developing that part of his game. And you got guys in camp, Isaiah McKenzie, Cole Beasley didn't practice today, but he'll be out there. Nick Easley, David Sills, guys that are, maybe smaller, speedier receivers that you want to get them the ball in space so they can make some plays, along with a LaShawn McCoy, a Devin Singletary, which we could talk about in a little bit. But I came away today very impressed with Josh Allen, as I've been for the most part, throughout his rookie season and into this year. I think that he understands what he has to do and what he has to improve on, and he's set on doing that and getting better. So it's going to be fun to watch that as this period of phase 3 of off-season workouts continues on into training camp. Another guy I was able to talk to today was Zay Jones. Going into this this period, we put up some stuff on the website about who is the number one receiver of this team. You know, you bring in a guy like John Brown, a speedy outside threat that, you know, has been a number one before. He was brought into Baltimore last year and by most accounts was their number one, especially early on in the season when he developed a bit of a rapport with Joe Flacco. And then you ask yourself, what does that do for Zay Jones? But he was the first guy in team drills. Or individual drills, and then he was, for the most part, that number one guy in the team drills as well. So I think that, you know, we may have a situation here that whereas many fans may not view Zay Jones as the number one on this team, I think he could be the number one. And, you know, there's a confidence about Zay Jones. You dial it back to last year in training camp when he missed all of OTAs, when he was dealing with the off-the-field issues, the hotel room incident, the injury and the surgery and then the rehab. He didn't get back until a week or two into training camp. He's here, he's working, he's building confidence, he's getting better, he's more physically ready for the season. He's added some weight, he's added some bulk to his build, and I think that we could be in store for a significant jump in production from Zay Jones, along with all of the help that's been put around him and Josh Allen in this offense. I think that could open up things for Zay Jones, and he won't necessarily be, the number one target on a lot of teams, when it comes to game planning against the Bills. I think that he can, get some things done. Gary says Zay to me is number one, and we'll show it this year. He looked so good the last 5 or 6 games last season. And Gary, I'm right there with you. I mean, you take those 2 Miami Dolphins games, obviously not the toughest competition, but he soared in those games, and you want your best players to play well against your division rivals, teams that you have to play twice a year, and he looked great in those games. He played strong down the stretch, and he's trying to build on that, and I think that's the storyline around everything that's going on with this team. Also wanted to talk about the running back room. Guys, I got to tell you, I'm very impressed with Devin Singletary. Let me preface this by saying, listen, these guys are practicing without pads, in shorts. The physicality isn't really there, but the traits that Brandon Beane talked about after Devin Singletary was drafted, the elusiveness, the decision-making, the vision in the hole, that's all been on display already. He popped a really nice run today, getting between the tackles, even eliciting a handshake from LaShawn McCoy on the sideline. A LaShawn McCoy that, made some news for the fact that he didn't really congratulate Devin Singletary, and it made people wonder, he didn't talk today, made people wonder, what's his thoughts on the Bills drafting a running back in the 3rd round? He wants to be the guy still. He thinks he still has that in him to be the guy. So that dynamic is going to be very interesting. Frank Gore was brought in this room. Josh Allen spoke today that Frank Gore got up before the entire team and talked about his experience in the league. This is a future Hall of Famer that all of a sudden now is in that locker room with LaShawn McCoy, who was a captain last year and supposedly the leader in that room. I think the dynamic of this running back room is very interesting. And then you have TJ Yeldon in the mix, a dual threat running back who's known for his ability to receive, for his receiving ability out of the backfield. And that's going to be important for Josh Allen in this offense. Brian Dable's going to have to dial up some stuff to get these running backs involved in the passing game, because I think that, they were underutilized in 2018. I thought that, LaShawn McCoy and, Marcus Murphy, who was 3rd on the depth chart, when he was in the game, I would have liked to see them more involved in the passing game. You saw LaShawn McCoy out wide a few times today. I think that's a formation that Brian Dable is going to lean on, and you got to get the ball to your playmakers. Allen knows that. These running backs know that, and this is a rebuilt offensive line group that's hopefully going to get the for the Bills' sake, get the running game going, which will allow the passing game to open up a little bit for these running backs. Interesting alignments today on the offensive line for anybody that would like to know. Gary, before I get to that, Gary mentions, should the Bills trade for Kyle Rudolph with Croft hurt? What do you think? I think we can get him. Yeah, it's very interesting. Listen, I think Tyler Croft will probably be back at some point early in the season if he's not ready for the the opener. But he had the same injury last year, and this is definitely concerning. The Bills spent a high draft pick, a 3rd round pick on Dawson Knox. They give up 2 4th round picks, but he's a developmental prospect. He's a guy that didn't really produce on the college level. They like the intangibles. They like the speed, the quickness, the athleticism. The route running needs to be developed a bit. I think his ability at the catch point has to be developed a little bit. But you saw in practice today, he made a couple grabs, the speed, the way he bursts into his, his cuts, and, the athleticism is evident. So I think that they like Dawson Knox. But to your point, do they feel confident in potentially Dawson Knox, Lee Smith combination going into the season? Jason Kroom could get involved if he plays well in camp, which he did last year and in the preseason. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it would come down to what you have to give up. Rudolph, a guy that is probably on the second half of his career in terms of production. The numbers haven't really popped the last couple, but if you can get him for a late round pick, throw him into the mix, it may be it'll depend on what this regime, Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, what they feel about this roster and how close they are. If they make a deal for a Kyle Rudolph, a proven playmaker, guy that could come in here, bring some leadership and some experience, I think that's an interesting prospect, but I think it might also depend on, the progression of a Dawson Knox, a Tommy Sweeney, who had kind of a rough day today. There was one play over the middle where he was stripped by Maurice Alexander, new linebacker, depth guy, probably more of a special teams player, and, you hate to see that for some of these younger prospects that are coming in here for the first time around NFL talent. Ed Oliver got his first go at things today and had a little bit of a scuffle with Spencer Long, who was playing right guard. They were throwing some double teams at Oliver in the team drills. One play in particular, he didn't like how long Spencer Long held up his block, and they got into a little bit of an exchange after. Spencer went back to the Gary mentioned, love Knox's upside. Is he signed yet? No, he has not signed yet. A lot of these third-round picks, they're taking a little bit longer, but he is here. He is taking part in OTAs and minicamps, so it'd be good to track his progress, and I'm sure that they'll be worked out at some point. But, back to Ed Oliver, after the skirmish, he kind of stayed, stood his ground, and Spencer Long went back to the huddle and started barking at him a little bit, wanted to engage. There was a lot of chit-chat out there today, back and forth between the offense and the defense. Josh Allen, a guy who has this very cool persona. He loves to yuck it up in there. He loves to talk trash. You see the way that he gets up in the defense's face in games, and there's going to be some of that playful stuff and some of that competitive stuff throughout the summer, and you saw that today. There was one play, new cornerback Kevin Johnson. Have that on here as well that I want to talk about, that cornerback number 2 job. Levi Wallace lined up at the number 2 cornerback spot with the first team, but Kevin Johnson really, really played well, showed well. Again, in practice, no pads, but he made an interception, almost had another one, and he was active today. He brought an energy to that defensive backfield, and there was one point where he kind of put his finger up a little bit, waved it. I think it was in Robert Foster's face after a breakup. And you could see LaShawn McCoy come out on the field. Zay Jones came out of the field to kind of talk some stuff with him, maybe even, tell him to back it off a little bit. But, there's definitely an energy around that field. I wanted to go live on Facebook because I wanted to bring that to you guys a little bit. What I witnessed today, on the practice field and in the facility, there's definitely, an energy, and there's an expectation around this team to be good. And I think that there is real belief and confidence from the coaching staff throughout the locker room and on this roster that there's a belief that this team could be good this year. And then that's exciting. I mean, you go back to the early parts of last season, that Baltimore game sticks out, and going on the road after, the long training camp and the 47-3, or I think it was the final. And hope was bleak. I mean, there wasn't a ton of it. And now you go into a summer and an off season, kind of in the books now, what Brandon Beane's been able to do, and there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of things to look forward to, and one of the biggest things to look forward to, in my opinion, I wrote it in the description here, my most improved player, top candidate, and it's Tremayne Edmonds. I mean, man, we all marveled at him on the practice field last year throughout, training camp and then throughout the season. He's so tall and he's so overwhelming. He just looks like he's completely settled into his role, his job. You go back and to last season, he was really learning the middle linebacker position after playing on the outside in college. And it seems like, as a guy that, his coaching staff has been adamant that he is dedicated to the game, learning his playbook, learning how the position. And you're seeing that. You're seeing that transformation, that transition into a confident player with just crazy intangibles, a crazy skill set, the athleticism, the speed. The way he's able to go sideline to sideline is unbelievable. I think Tremayne Edmonds is going to be a real impact player, playing behind an improved defensive line with Ed Oliver there, a lot more disruptive in the interior defensive line. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how all of these guys play off of each other and what kinds of improvements in their own games they're able to have because of the guys playing around them now. Matt Milano was back on the field as well. After the long rehab from the broken fibula at the end of last season. He looked great. He looked in great spirits. So much stuff here, guys. So much we're going to have you covered over the next couple weeks. We'll be here next Tuesday, the following Tuesday, and then we'll be here 3 straight days for mini camp the week after that. That'll wrap up everything from this portion of off-season workouts, and then we're in the 6-week race to training camp, and I'll be out in Pittsburgh before you know it, getting ready for the 2019 season. For all your Bills content, keep it locked on nyupinsyracuse.com as always. Give me a follow on Twitter at Matt Parrino. We're also starting this new exciting project, Syracuse.com. If you subscribe to the Syracuse.com, you will get access to Project Text, which will allow you to actually text with me back and forth whenever you want. If you have questions about Bills questions, you want insider access, I'll give you even more stuff in the locker rooms. Cool feature that we're just rolling out. Check that out. We'll have more for you in the weeks to come. And give Ryan Talbot Bills a follow on Twitter as well. We'll have you covered with everything Bills related. You can follow NY Up Buffalo Bills on Instagram. We'll have some cool content on there as well. We got you covered on all of social media because we want to bring you guys the best Bills coverage that we can. And always hit me up. My direct messages are open on Twitter. If you have any questions or any content requests, I'm always here to listen. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back next Tuesday after OTAs, and we'll talk through everything that happens then. It's an exciting time to be a Bills fan. I'm glad that you're along for the ride, and we'll see you next week.